Hello, everyone. Welcome to the June Open edX online community meetup. We are recording this event so that it will be available on YouTube later. I've got some slides to show. My name is Ned Batchelder. I work at edX on the Open edX team, and I have since the team's inception in early 2014. So we've been at this a long time. I'm very excited to be out in front of the community and see what the community is doing. This is a very interesting time for online education. So it's really gratifying to see what the community can do by coming together and sharing information such as we're about to do. Just a few words about the community as a whole. We have a code of conduct, which is available on the open.edx.org website. We have a discourse forum, which is also available on that domain there, discuss.openedx.org. And we have a Slack workspace for real-time chat, which you can invite yourself to from the openedx.org website. Of course, we have the usual social media. We have a blog, we tweet, we have a community on Facebook, and a group on LinkedIn. And I encourage you to join any of those that feel like a natural place for you to be in social media. These online meetups happen once a month. We would love to hear what you have to say. If you want to present, you can get in touch with us either through email at OSCM, Open Source Community Managers at edX.org, or we have a Google form, and there's a sort of ugly long URL, but these slides will be available, and I'll make the link available in other places as well. One piece of news that I want to make sure everyone knows about, earlier this week, we officially released the 10th community release of the Open edX software, codenamed Juniper. We named the releases after trees, and we were up to J. We went from Aspen all the way to Juniper. This release took us a while because we were working on the upgrade to Python 3 and from Django 1.11 to Django 2.2. And that took a good long while, but we didn't do just that. We also built a lot of interesting features. So what you get in Juniper is about almost 18 months of development. We do not have detailed release notes yet, but we are very close. We are pulling together all that information, and we will have detailed information about what is available in Juniper soon. But you should definitely plan to upgrade. The foundations of the Open edX platform are packages of software that go in and out of support, and we rely on the support of those packages to give us security fixes. And Juniper is running on software that gets security fixes. Previous releases, including the most recent one, Ironwood, are not running on software that is still getting security fixes, so you are strongly encouraged to upgrade. And if you need help with that, there is the discourse forum and the Slack workspace where you can find help from people. Now, I just want to take a moment and say something about our current time. The last two online meetups, we were focused on the pandemic and the virus, and that is still ongoing, and it is still affecting all of our work in online education. But now we have another thing happening, which is a growing social awareness of the injustice and inequity in the world, and people are trying to do things about it. And edX is trying to do things about it, and Open edX, I know each of us is trying to do things about it. I personally would like to do more about it and professionally do more about it. So, edX and therefore Open edX had as their mission to increase access to high quality education for everyone, everywhere. And I'm leaning hard on the everyone in that sentence during these times. The reason we are all in this business of education is because we want to lift people up. And it is most important to lift up those people that need lifting and to correct problems in society. And that's what education is all about. There's a blog post on the edX blog with some resources for anti-racism education, books and podcasts, and of course, online courses. I encourage you to spread the word, to get people engaged, but I also want to hear your ideas. What can we individually do? What can we as a group do? Among the websites that we track that are run with Open edX, I know there are ones that are focused on this type of education. I wish I had had more time to find those sites so that I could highlight them for you. I'm hoping we can pull some of those up and get them out in front of people. We're always interested in showcasing what people are doing with Open edX. Anyway, this would be a great time to showcase how people in particular are using free and open source tools to educate people to help with the problems that we're currently facing. I don't know what more there is to say about that in this moment. Everyone's got to mute. Excuse me. I don't know what more there is to say about it in this moment. It feels almost strange to talk about anything else in this moment, but I don't know what else to say right now. And building the technology and talking about the technology and how people are using the technology can itself be a way to help. So that's what we're doing in this meetup today. And with that, I would like to invite Nicole and Silvio to tell us about how abstract technology is using BigBlueButton with Open edX to spread education throughout the world. I can stop sharing, I think. Stop sharing. Nicole or Silvio, who's going to be sharing the screen?
It's me.
Okay.
I will share.
You should be able to do that. And by the way, I look very, very blue. I apologize for the weather.
No, host disabled.
On my face right here. That seemed to help.
So I'm still not able.
You're not? Let me see. You should be able to.
I should be able. I will try again. No, it said host disabled attendee screen sharing.
All right. You're right. Go. Now you can. My mistake.
Now I can? Yes, now I can. All right. So can you all see my screen?
I see myself.
So here we go. Okay. So welcome to our presentation on integrating BigBlueButton in Open edX. My name is Nicole Kessler and I'm web designer at Abstract Technology. Together with my colleague Silvio Tomatis, who is CTO at Abstract, we will present our experiences we have made when integrating BigBlueButton as webinar tool into Open edX. So thank you all for joining today, and thank you, Ned, for the great introduction. I'm very excited and happy to attend this meeting and to present our experiences. So now let's get started. Why we chose to go with BigBlueButton. Even before the coronavirus outbreak, customers had increasingly asked for tools to not only give lectures, but also to actively involve their audience. And we started evaluating the possibilities of integrating a web conferencing tool with interactive features into Open edX to enrich online courses and to offer engaging live sessions to learners. So with BigBlueButton, we have found such a tool, and we are happy to present our integration hereby. But first, I would like to briefly explain what BigBlueButton is and also present its features. So BigBlueButton is a professional solution for online and remote teaching, which not only offers the basic features which are necessary to run lectures, but also further features to perform interactive and engaging web conferences. Since it offers a wide set of features explicitly designed for online learning, it offers a set of features explicitly designed for online learning. Like Open edX, its nature is open source since 2007, and it gets actively maintained by a core group of committers. So now let's take a look to the features. What are the features you would expect from a video conferencing tool? The basic features are, first of all, the audio and video to allow your audience to hear you and see you, and vice versa for sure. So next, we have the possibility to share your screen and also to allow others to share your screen. And if you have prepared any presentation, you for sure want to share it, want to share the slides, and BigBlueButton offers the possibility to upload the PDF version of your presentation, and this doesn't require sharing your total screen. A further basic feature is, on the one hand, the chat to let your audience communicate with each other via writing, and the shared notes to keep all the relevant and most important informations for later, to allow students or attendees to review all key facts at a later stage. Then, like any other web conferencing tool, also BigBlueButton offers the option to record your session. The recordings can be saved and will be automatically uploaded into the courseware so that learners which could not attend the live session are able to watch the recordings. Yeah, before we go over to the BigBlueButton and its features, before we go over, we will take a look to the features explicitly designed for online learning. So here we have a very nice one. It's the interactive whiteboard tool, which allows you to draw and write in real time and for everyone to see. You also can allow your users via the multi-user mode setting to do the same. It's the combination of those two tools is comparable to the blackboard in the classroom. And yeah, to not interrupt each other, BigBlueButton offers the feature called hand lifting. A moderator will see that the student lifted the hand and can then ask the person to speak whenever it fits into the presentation or into the lecture. Then I remember in school, we sometimes had to work in separated groups, which is quite hard to realize in live conferences. So BigBlueButton offers so-called breakout rooms, and you as a moderator can divide your audience into groups. And once set, the groups will be land in separated rooms and can discuss relevant topics. And after a while, the teacher can end the breakout room session and all learners will be back in the main room and can share the results of each breakout session. So with BigBlueButton, you can also create surveys and polls in between. So either to awaken your audience or to engage them. Then we all know the problem of an unstable internet connection. It can be quite challenging, but there's an alternative in BigBlueButton. You can just easily dial into the respective live session via telephone. BigBlueButton takes data protection very seriously and offers a high standard through encryption. Now we are coming to the most interesting point of today's presentation. So running BigBlueButton meetings from within Open edX. In the following, I will show you some screenshots and to visualize how a BigBlueButton integration would look like in OpenEdX. First, I will show it from the learner perspective. So here we go. It's in the courseware as you can see, and yeah, here a learner gets displayed the view of a already performed meeting. So he can choose from the table that you can choose from the table the link watch and then watch the recorded meeting. There's also the description provided and the date when it was held and the duration. The user can also see a preview, take a look to a preview, which are just images. And if there's another session, the user can click on the button Join Meeting. And by clicking on the button Join Meeting, he will see something like this. So the courseware screen will change and the meeting window opens. So yeah, here you can see the presentation uploaded. So this is what I meant with you can upload your presentation and then navigate through the slides so everybody can see it. There's this hand on the right side, as you can see, for this hand lifting tool. And for sure, the camera and audio is can be shared, and you can mute yourself, you can mute others, you can access the chat and the shared notes, and you can end the session as well. So let's take a look to the point of view of the authors. Yeah, you as an author can integrate a session via the LTI component in Studio. Here you have to go to click on advanced on the advanced component types and then choose the LTI component and type into the fields the relevant credentials. My colleague Silvio will go deeper into it and explain it. Yeah, once you hit save, it will look like this. So the table is the table is empty, and there's just the button to join a meeting, to start a new meeting. Yeah. So now I will hand over to my colleague Silvio, and he will further explain the backend side of BigBlueButton integration.
Hello. So I'll take it from here and go on with talking about what's under the hood to make this integration possible between edX and BigBlueButton. So we're using the LTI X Block, which is an X Block that inside edX, as I'm sure you all know, allows you to embed content using the LTI protocol that comes from an external source. And on the BigBlueButton part, we're using the BigBlueButton LTI component, which is an additional server that one can install on top of BigBlueButton, and it will talk to BigBlueButton using its API, and it will then provide a service to the LTI. Basically, what we saw in the inside edX was drawn, that HTML there was drawn by BigBlueButton LTI, because he's in charge to, it's the piece in charge to talk to BigBlueButton. Now, the current version that is out is 2.2, and unfortunately, it has a bug, which would make your recording listing look like this, which would be quite unusable. We managed to make it work by applying a pull request that is there already present on the BigBlueButton LTI repository, which is developed together with the main BigBlueButton product. And that pull request has been sitting there since beginning of May, it hasn't been merged yet, but as users, since the problem here is inside the template file, you don't have to do the whole build to get it. You can just go to your BigBlueButton LTI installation and apply these changes, and you will have that fix. Now, I'm mentioning this because it shows the limitation of this approach. That on one hand, it looks like this BigBlueButton LTI integration is not really on top of the priorities of the people developing BigBlueButton. Also because this pull request was triaged for version 2.3. So we can't expect this to be fixed until version 2.3, and this is quite big. It makes it quite not so usable. Also, there are other limitations of this approach in that it uses the LTI component, which is very flexible to allow many different sources inside edX, but it speaks to the LTI language, so to speak. And we're thinking about developing a new integration, which would be more custom tailored. So we're evaluating the possibility to develop a BigBlueButton X Block, which would talk via the BigBlueButton API directly to BigBlueButton. And this would allow to solve some challenges like being able to customize it more easily, since the current implementation is also implemented in Groovy, which is quite a foreign language and framework to people working on edX side, which are usually Python people. And also because yeah, it would be easier to customize. And we're currently looking for sponsors or customers that are interested into this solution. So if you want to talk about it, please get in touch with us. And this makes the end of our presentation. So thank you everyone for your attention. And if you have any questions, please get in touch.
Yes, thank you. It's very interesting to see how these tools can come together. Do people have questions? I have a few questions, but I'm happy for other people to start. Either unmute to ask or type it in the chat window. So first of all, I'm curious about, I know we're all very familiar with Zoom these days. We're on Zoom right now. I'm wondering sort of what's the difference between BigBlueButton and Zoom? The list of features you gave us, Zoom has a lot of those, so I'm wondering about what are the fine differences between the two.
If I may, I can take over to my colleague Silvio, and I'm Stefania from Abstract as well. Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah, fine. Because I think this question is more related to our situation in Germany and something related to the data security. So during that time in Germany, we have had quite a lot of university discussing about which is the best tools to use, and politicians and let's say data security experts, data protect, so GDPR stuff came up, and on top of the solution mentioned in open source as open source solution that came up was the BigBlueButton solution. So a lot of universities started to ask and to go deeper and investigate and install OpenEdX, and other university discovered that OpenEdX was still there, so they just created more instances and they started using. So it's really a big questions about data protection and related to BigBlueButton than to say Zoom is good or GoToMeeting is better or we are better. So, and the Zooming situation was that nobody, so for example, let's say in schools, they said teacher cannot use Zoom. So find out an alternative, but it's forbidden to use Zoom for the data protection situation. And that's the point.
Right, okay. The breakout rooms in Zoom have always frustrated me because I want a way to make rooms and let people choose their own room. Is it the same in BigBlueButton where one host has to assign people to rooms?
In BigBlueButton, you have both options. So you have the options to select who have to go there. So from A to C to D to, or you can automatically say, okay, you have 20 people and you open 3 and it's go automatically without choosing the name in the different breakout room. So it's how it works.
But I couldn't make 3 rooms with 3 different topics and let people choose the topic they want to discuss.
No, it's right. Correct.
Right. Okay. Marco is here. Marco is at edX on the Open edX team, often overseeing the product development that goes into the platform, and wanted to say just a little bit about LTI progress. But yeah, there you go.
Yeah, so thanks again for demoing that and presenting that. Super excited to see that work. One of the things that came up a couple times was the sort of like underlying LTI things that you guys are dependent on. So I just thought I'd make a couple quick notes about that work so that people have visibility into the LTI work we're doing. There's an open contribution to have the LTI provider infrastructure, which is tangential to this, support version 1.3, the new specification. That has not been reviewed or merged. There's also work that we're doing to make the LTI consumer X Block also support the 1.3 spec, so that authors can choose either to use the 1.1, 1.2 spec or the 1.3 spec. And 1.3 is a lot more complicated in terms of the authentication and other stuff. So there's a whole bunch of work that's being added to the LTI consumer X Block right now in a branch that will be live soon. That includes documentation and a bunch of other updates. In addition to that work, work that we have discovery documents for, and there's a plan to sort of make a more public announcement and call for like an ADR and broader input on LTI. But I just thought in the interim between us having that ADR and public summary, I could share some of the brief notes of things we're talking about for LTI. The first thing is supporting LTI Advantage, which includes deep linking, rostering and provisioning, and gradebook support, gradebook and assessment service support. Another thing related to the 1.3 work is that we're talking about potentially building or defining some sort of specification for a public open edX LTI directory. Something that lists all the known LTI integrations, provides a way for people to register more, mention which ones are available, and lets every instance be able to decide which of them are enabled or disabled on their instance. And there's some questions about how to configure that as well, so that you could say, maybe you want to enable your LTI integration for BigBlueButton, which you know is GDPR compliant, to also get the metadata for a learner's cohort and their team and their enrollment track. But by default, you don't want any LTI provider to have access to that information, since that's personally identifiable. So there's a bunch of sort of questions and sort of things that we're thinking about how to solve with this open LTI app directory, and each instance being able to configure which ones they want to enable or disable. But the final expression of it, and I'll stop talking after this, is that in Studio, instead of having to add the LTI block and then do all this configuration work, we could actually list external course content blocks and list all these different services directly in Studio in the unit component adding experience to streamline the configuration and setup, not just at the per course level, but maybe at the instance level or program or course, other levels. So a lot of other stuff going on there, but the real message, if you didn't catch all of the technical jargon that I sort of just skimmed over really quickly, is that we hope to have an ADR. If you are interested, please reach out in the LTI channel on Slack. which is where we're trying to have all the conversations about this work, both in the LTI channel and the LTI 1.3 channel in Slack. And that's it.
Marco mentioned ADR. That stands for Architectural Decision Record, which is our way of having a lightweight document that records the engineering decisions we make along the way. So there'll be ADR means basically a very, very short engineer-oriented spec about what's going on. In the chat, there are some interesting questions, including Silvio, who points out that he had to rejoin and couldn't access the past chat, but with BigBlueButton, the chat would have been persistent. I'm curious about, so there's a question here, is the X Block ready now? And it is not, but I'm curious about how much work we think it might be to make an X Block like that. Anyone have? Silvio, you're muted if you're trying to speak.
It crashed. My browser crashed again while you were
Are you getting paid by BigBlueButton to talk trash about Zoom? Is that what's going on?
but it happens to, yeah, Zoom doesn't happen to work fine with me for some reason. Can you repeat, please?
The question is how much work is it to make an X Block for this, a native non-LTI native X Block for BigBlueButton? It's
not. I believe it's not that much work, because the API is quite easy, and it depends also on the level of features that you want to put in. But a basic thing that, for instance, one of the features that I feel like are missing a lot is being able to put the slides in the edX interface, because right now you have to first go into the room, the BigBlueButton room, to then be able to upload your presentation. And if you exit the room will actually be destroyed if nobody's in it, and so your presentation with it. So, but I think it's a kind of a low-hanging fruit, at least to have something, a minimum viable product.
Right. And are you you mentioned wanting to know who might be interested in that block, and that was, I think, from a funding perspective or a collaboration perspective?
We're interested in hearing from others if there is interest in general. And in the chat, somebody said that they were already developing it, but I don't remember who it was, and I don't have access to the chat.
That was me, Daniel.
Okay.
Oh, I see. Oh, a custom LTI provider for BigBlueButton. Very nice. And you will of course go to discuss.openedx.org to announce that work, Daniel.
I probably have to get approval first. I mean, eventually we're planning to get it open source.
Sure. Yeah, I'm not asking you to give away any secrets, but once it's open source, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't know if this goes to Stefania or Nicole or Tomas, but what's the feedback about using this, either from students or instructors, and what improvements would you be looking for in the future?
So from our perspective, so for example, one of our customer, the Politecnico in Torino in Italy, is using these for over 40,000 students, and I can't remember, Silvio, is it right? They are running over 100 instances parallel. Balanced with the load balancer. They wrote extra for that, and they are very happy, because in Italy they have had the same problem with the Zoom and security legacy. So the policy about the security of system, and where are the data of all the students that join a web conference tool. So it's quite news also for us. So we are collecting the experience. We are testing with one of Berlin school how the experience and let's say the stabilities with the system. I think we are quite new in the field, so I will not have nothing really sure to share. I hope maybe later we have more numbers, more feedback to tell.
Mm-hmm. Okay. There's more in the chat here. So, Daniel, do you want to tell us more? Say what you put in the chat here so that we have it on the,
Sure,
on the recording.
yeah. So essentially, we found a lot of limitations with the existing LTI provider that BigBlueButton has. So as you saw in the demo earlier, that it's fairly bare bones. You can join a meeting. It shows you the existing recordings, but aside from that, there's not much you can do. So for us, the important things were scheduling meetings and kind of doing everything through the interface on Open edX or wherever the LTI consumer is. So for example, Silvio mentioned uploading the presentations, adding to calendar, stuff like that. So we want all of that to be done through Open edX rather than an extra step and going into BigBlueButton itself.
Okay, and you mentioned in the chat that you you submitted a pull request to them. So BigBlueButton is open source, as Open edX is. Daniel, you mentioned that you submitted a pull request to them, but it doesn't sound like they're moving as quickly as you might like to merge those pull requests. I understand those dynamics, unfortunately, from our own Open edX contribution stream. But I'm wondering if you have any more background on the experience of using it as an open source project.
Yep. So right now we have kind of one central instance of it that's running as a proof of concept. And one of the needs is we have many actual consumers, so we need multiple sets of LTI credentials. And unfortunately, they had a bug that only supports one set. So that the PR was essentially fixing that. It was a really small change. But in terms of actually operating it, it's fairly simple. They have an install script, which is just a shell script that you run. It takes around 15 minutes to install, and if you have a domain name, you have a working version of BigBlueButton running.
Okay, and we have questions in the chat also about Jitsi Meet, which is an entirely other video conferencing system. Does anyone have any experience with them? I know I don't. Sounds like we don't have any volunteers for that. But it does sound like. Go ahead.
Sorry, a quick search did lead me to believe that they have some sort of like kind of maybe cumbersome but existent Canvas LTI something or other. So it's possible that it's doable via LTI. I don't know for sure though. I couldn't find anything directly.
All right. It does sound like there is strong interest in having these improved LTI or X Block experiences for BigBlueButton. So I would encourage people to publicize what they can of the work they're doing. You might be able to find collaborators, other problem solvers to build one, we can call it Bigger Blue Button, to solve all the problems at once. Are there other questions about BigBlueButton or discussions about this topic? No. That's the end of what we had planned for discussion and presentation. Is anything else that people would like to discuss? We can't get into super detailed rabbit holes, but we can see what's on people's minds.
I had one just additional follow-up that I wanted to mention that is related a little bit to X Block and LTI, just that I forgot to mention earlier. So I'll just add that. And then there are a number of people in the community that have done X Block wrapper around an LTI component. That is my understanding, at least, of the work that was done. So this is somewhat related to what was presented earlier, or sort of maybe in between those. And my recollection is that there are some working examples in the community, not only for BigBlueButton, but possibly also H5P and possibly also Zoom. edX in particular has some sort of version or variant of this for a Zoom X Block right now that sort of is a wrapper around LTI. I don't know what the future holds for Open edX, LTI, and X Block sort of extensions, but one of the last bits of work that I wanted to mention that we are looking at doing is potentially finding a way to isolate the LTI libraries and tools that we have that are currently hiding in the X block, the consumer X block, and putting them outside of the X block as a generic library or package that could then be used as the basis, as a library basis, excuse me, to be used in other parts of the platform. So we've talked about having like in-context applications that load in the course as a sidebar, or maybe at the program or platform level, you want to load a discussion forum LTI experience, or I don't know, a job board or some other coaching or mentor, whatever, and just any other LTI integration that you could imagine other parts or pages of the platform letting you add these plugins. A lot of stuff there that I'm just sort of glossing over, but we're trying to sort of think about ways to lean into LTI. So that's the last thing I'll mention there. Hopefully that was clear.
You don't have to promise that it'll be the last. You're welcome to contribute whatever you've got, Marco. We're a very welcoming and we're a welcoming and open community, Marco. Please chime in. So more in the chat. Someone, Lasha, points out that Proversity on their GitHub has a Rocket Chat and Jitsi X, I guess, and Jitsi X plugin, or at least Rocket Chat. So there's a lot of work going on around here to integrate lots of different systems. We need to do a better job surfacing these so that people can find them more easily.
Ned, if possible, you can give an answer to one of the last question from Shweta.
Who asked about MS Teams.
Yeah, how to compare or compete. I think that so this is my opinion, in the open source world, the community and philosophy, you never have to compare or compete with systems that are, let's say, in a complete different area, like Microsoft or whatever, or Zoom. So it's not a kind of, I think that because we use edX, Open edX as a solution for the learning, in this case, we cannot intend, so when we speak to our customer, we need to find a similar product with a similar philosophy. So I think that each product could be good, and a lot of product are very, very, very similar. But that's the way, because there is a lot, and the market is open to choose what you need for your customer. And we believe that in an open source license-free solution, we have to set up a conference hall which have the same rules. That's why comparing, it's not a problem. You can compare features, but I think you have very, very similar feature, because you take a look when you create a new BigBlueButton system or new software. So that's my point. We need to have open source solution where there is no license, and where people is able to use the system without cost. And that's the main idea behind of it. And this is open source, and this is Open edX as well.
Right, and just to be clear, it isn't that there's no license. There's no license fee. There are licenses attached to all of this software. Right. So any other topics that people are interested in discussing?
I have a brainstorming question. This is Scott McLeod. Thank you, Stefania and Abstract Technologies, and Marco as well. I asked this in email to, in some ways, Stefania, and also in message to Marco just now. I'll put it this way. Could video conferencing technologies develop the background so that the background, such as Marco's background, became part of a realistic virtual earth as STEM field sites and as classrooms? Think Google Street View with Time Slider. And is that on the horizon of your work, Stefania, or potentially Marco's? So you could travel through this world, and it could even become medical schools for telerobotic surgery. So precise and secure.
Who wants to field that one?
I can at least talk about what I know is happening. So we have not necessarily ourselves planned for any direct development of something similar to what you described. The closest things we've done, as I mentioned earlier, that we have an initial Zoom X Block. So we're basically just saying, we're relying on what Zoom does for virtual backgrounds, which is not, not actually addressing the core sort of ask that you have. I do believe there is in the community either a VR or AR video X Block, and I have not tried it out myself. I believe it was originally built by Proversity a couple years back. That is the only other community initiative that I'm aware of that has anything closer to what you're describing. There certainly are like some virtual lab X Blocks and simulators, but I also have not tested those myself. But if I were to highlight two things that I'm aware of, those are the only two that I can think of.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, we in this field tend to be more integrators than developers of the video technology itself, but we can certainly help surface the ideas, surface the desire, and bring people together to make it happen. Stefania?
Just one sentence to Scott questions. Yes, a lot of people love this background stuff in Zoom. I think it's just a hype, but okay, why not? I like to see the background of office and home office during that time is more interesting. There's this background. Sorry, Marcos, for saying that. But
we're going to start a fight here. We're going to have the virtuals versus the physicals, right?
Yeah,
pick your background.
Exactly. I like real life, real person, not artificial stuff behind the fuzz, because virtual life is still difficult, and we know what does it mean during the last month. Nevertheless, so the point is that I think, Silvio, maybe something to go deeper, because the green light stuff that is used, I don't know the name, technical name of BigBlueButton. Silvio told me it's not so difficult to customize. So we're talking about add-on features, I presume. So nothing very, very special and difficult to do it, but just as a raw idea.
Thank you.
All right. What else have we got? Anyone have a topic? We're nearly at the top of the hour. We don't have to fill the time. I encourage you all to go to discuss.openedx.org and continue the discussion. Stefania says she'll start a thread there about BigBlueButton. Lots of LTI work is happening. You heard from Marco about improvements to make it easier to customize. I think we might be hearing about that from the community as well. So I expect that that'll be coming. Everyone stay safe, stay engaged, do the good work you're doing to spread education throughout the world. Remember, the mission is quality education for everyone, everywhere. I really appreciate you taking this time. I know that we're all a little zoomed out these days, so to speak. So thank you for joining me for this. Thank you for joining the rest of us. Stay safe, be well, and I'll see you in a month. So long.